All right, hey, if everybody's ready, we're going to go ahead and get started. How's that? So I appreciate everybody taking the time to sit in this first videotaped 3A all call. Yeah, again, not my idea, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I was told that the way I communicate with the field is outdated. And I get that. So I've been doing this for 29 years. Probably just about everything I do is outdated. So trying to get with the time. So this is the first of potentially many based on how this goes and the feedback we get from you after the fact. So with that said, slides. And I think we got the slides out to everybody. So we're on the overview slide now if you want to follow along. If not, just so that you know what we're talking about here. We're looking at an overview slide of basically what we're going to talk about today. You can see a wide variety of topics, all impacting our career field as we go through some key changes right now. Most of these topics are driven by questions that have been coming up lately. So again, you have questions, you have concerns, things are on your mind. So the whole purpose of this is to help everyone better understand what's going on with us, the direction we're headed, what we're going to do, potentially what we'll look like in the future, things of that nature. Then at the end, we're going to answer, we put a poll out for questions, and the top 5 questions that came back, we'll answer those. And then we'll offer an opportunity for additional questions after that, and we'll talk about that toward the end. So with that said, let's get started. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the functional realignment. The hot topic lately has been the career field conversion, but what led to the career field conversion? Why did we become 3F5s? And really what started that was the functional realignment. For the past 20 some odd years, we've been a part of the A6 community, Common Cyber. And what we bring to the Air Force wasn't really, it didn't fit well. We didn't nest well within that community. The type of work we do, we were always kind of the outlier. So we looked for a better fit, a better match, a better home. And I mean, if you look at the CSSs, and we're working hand in hand with personnelists right now in that function, the alignment makes sense. The work we do directly relates with A1 significantly better than it does with A6. So we started this project 18 months ago, 20 months ago. April of 2016 was when we kicked this off. And then it just happened in September. So that gives you an idea when you do something this big, of this magnitude, how long it takes to push it through the process. So again, kicked it off in April of 16. We just got General Wilson's approval. Hey, hot mic. We just got General Wilson's approval at the end of September. So again, you're looking at 18, 19 months beginning to end for us to push that through. With the functional realignment and us going from A6 to A1, I'm already in A1 now. I've already moved over. Others are going to follow. Everybody should be in place by December. The PGL that was put out, that's kind of guiding this along, put that as the line in the sand when that function needs to officially be moved. So that'll trickle down. So at this level, we've already made the change. The MAGCOMs are working the changes, and then eventually that'll work its way to base functional managers. And the big question that everybody's had is the base functional going to move to the FSS? And that's not the intent. So right now, the base functional manager doesn't sit in the comm squadron. They sit in the host wing or the support wing at every base. The reason for that is because they're not doing a comm squadron function, they're doing a base-wide function. And under this new setup, that doesn't change. So there's no reason to move them to the FSS because they're not doing an FSS function. They're still going to do a base-wide function. So that question's been coming up a lot. When is that person going to move over? And in reality, it's not. It's going to stay exactly where it is. So for most people at base level, I mean, really this realignment was transparent. It happened, and it was no impact to your day in and day out job. The one piece that you will see an impact is Postal. So the official mail centers in CONUS locations and the postal ops and official mail at your overseas locations, that's going to move from your base comm squadrons to your 4 support squadrons. The paperwork to accomplish that move needs to be in place by December, we talked about earlier. And then they have 12 months to actually execute those moves. So again, you're going to see that staggered over the next year, but you're going to see our community as a whole, move from the A6 and the comm community and gravitate toward the 4 support and the A1 community. The last one we threw up there just because you see it so often, whether you see it on Facebook or through questions or other avenues, is a lot of people were under the assumption that when we realigned, we're merging with another career field, and that's not the case at all. So we're going to remain a separate and distinct AFSC, and all of those AFSCs will remain separate and distinct as well. So again, that kind of pulls together the realignment piece, which leads to the next slide. So now we're on the conversion. So basically that tells you why we converted. Because A1 was working this initiative, basically they wanted to pull everybody in the 4 support community together. Everybody was kind of spread out doing their own thing, manpower, EO, services, and there was nothing that really tied that functional community together. So they came up with this initiative, and all of those AFSCs converted to 3F, not just us. So you have everything from 3F0 to 3F5 and all the ones in between. Again, this major initiative to pull everybody together, and now we're a part of that. I mean, so really if you look at the dates and how it played out, we're kind of speeding a little bit, right? So there at the end, when we got the PGL approved in September, I was starting to sweat it a little bit because we had done the paperwork. Our AFSC was going to convert. And we did that on the assumption that the PGL was going to get approved, but it wasn't approved yet. But at that point, we were so far along the process, we couldn't change it. It's just one of those, every now and then you take a risk because you're moving your career field in the right direction. We took that risk, and luckily, before November rolled around, we were able to get the final approval and align everything so that it was a seamless transition. But yeah, so that led to the conversion, and this really gives you an idea of why we converted. Is because within this functional community, they just wanted to pull everybody together in a way that makes sense. And this really streamlines that. But again, you see the note at the bottom because it comes up so often. All of those career fields, 6 in total, will remain separate career fields. There's no effort ongoing to merge us with the personnel career field. Okay, go next slide. So how does a conversion affect you? So has anybody looked at their records yet? And I understand you can't raise your hands out there and I can't see you, but hopefully some of you have looked at your records. Everybody automatically flipped yesterday. So in A1, we actually had a little potluck lunch yesterday, and we celebrated Effin' Day. And everybody brought in the food that started with F, again, to bring our family and community together. So we had a good time, because this is a big day, not just for our career field, but the entire functional community. So we had a good Effin' Day yesterday. We looked, everything flipped. So the only thing you'll notice that didn't change is the duty AFSC.
Can I interrupt for a moment? This is Chief Calfer in the 313 recruiting. Will mine change? And that was where I was kind of, I'm retiring in a couple of years, and I wanted to be admin straight through. So me being with the 8R right now, will I get to be the F?
Sure, if you want to, sure. Right, submit a 2096. Yeah. Okay. When do you come back from 8R? Or will you not come back from 8R?
I will not come back from 8R. I hit higher tenure in 2019, and I just got here the summer of this year.
Yeah, I mean, so technically, officially, yeah, you'll never carry that as far as your duty history goes.
Right now.
Officially. Unofficially, again, I mean, right? I mean, we can waive and work around things. Maybe your very last month, I can help you get 8F in your duty history as you walk out the door and retire. who knows? We'll see. We'll roll the dice and see what happens. But officially, yeah, if you're going to retire out of the 8R community, you would never get that added to your duty history. Yeah, so celebrated F&A Day. Everything went well. Everybody converted. The reason your duty AFSC didn't convert is because it's tied to position. And so we're still working with Air Force Manpower to flip all of the positions. Once the positions convert, then your duty AFSC is going to convert to align with it. That one's just going to take a little bit longer, but that one's coming. So the conversion went seamless. You know, how it affects you as far as the badge goes. The badge comes up a lot. I mean, we really piqued a lot of interest when we put that note out a couple months ago that you could wear the 3D badge if you were qualified for it. This conversion has no impact on the badges. So whatever badges you wore the day before we converted, you wear the same badges the day after. I mean, the only time you might notice a change, and you won't even see it soon, is when you go to clothing sales. Once the inventory of 3A badges runs out, because if you go buy a badge today, you still need to buy the 3A badge, because that's what's in their inventory. And they're not just going to get rid of those and replace them with 3Fs because it's the same exact thing. You know, a lot of people want to, you know, make these completely separate and different. This is simply a renaming. Same function, same AFSC. So if you go to clothing sales today and you need to pick up an occupational badge, pick up the 3A1 X1 until that inventory runs out, and then eventually you'll see a 3F5 badge. But that'll probably be a few months down the road. Yeah, so the other impact, performance reports. So the accounting date for Tech Sergeant EPRs and Staff Sergeant EPRs was prior to the conversion. So when the accounting date notices came out so that you could determine who your raters were and who's signing and all of that other stuff, you were reflected as a 3A. But on the SCOD, you'll be a 3F. So you need to make sure that those EPRs that should be in the hopper soon, if not already, your duty AFSC closes out as a 3F and not a 3A. And we'll try and catch those as they come through. But again, look for that those EPRs being worked now need to have the new AFSC on them. All right, next slide. All right. All right, so now we'll talk about training. And the reason I talk about this separate is because a lot of people want to tie some of the changes we're making to training to the career field conversion. That's not the case at all. So regardless of whether we stayed 3As or we became 3Fs, we need to change our training, right? And the reason I know that is because a lot of you told me that. So we did an occupational analysis survey several months back. A few of you were key members of that team that put that together, but it went out to the entire career field and we asked for your feedback on everything training for our career field, and the overwhelming consensus is that we need to change the training for our career field pretty much across the board. Nobody was really a fan of the training we provide right now. So we had our STRT, for those that aren't familiar with that, and basically that's where all the MAGCOM functional managers, myself, the training pipeline manager, you know, anybody who has a key part in our training, we met down at Keesler for a week. And we started with the CFETP. And the reason for that is because the CFETP drives all other training. So we looked at the CFETP beginning to end to determine what's in there now that needs to come out. And again, your feedback fed into that. So whenever you filled out that 200 or 300 question survey that said, this is what I do, this is what I don't do, you know, I do this, but it's really not part of my career field type stuff. We took all of that and we used that to develop our training going forward. So right now we're in the process of rewriting the CFETP. Made good progress. We're waiting for a few key inputs from the MAGCOMs, and then once we get that back, we can start the official rewrite and revamp. So with the CFETP, what we're looking at doing, there were a lot of carryover duties in there, duties that followed us when we split from the 3DOX1 career field, pubs management, right? So when we split from 3DOX1, that really is no longer a function of our career field. That they kept that. Same with records management and a few other things. So the group, and based on your inputs, decided we should take that out. So when you see the new CFETP, a lot of the stuff that we did before that carried over is going to get removed to the tune of almost 40%. So the CFETP rewrite is going to be an almost 40% change.
Yeah.
So that's coming. So what are we going to replace it with? So again, based on your feedback and the direction our career field's going, right? So we're going to add a big block for meal PDS training. Okay, everybody asked for it. Everybody said we need it. You know, the CSSs have been approved to get meal PDS for 3As. So we're moving in that direction. So we need to train you how to use that tool. And we're going to start that training at the schoolhouse. So we're going to add that to the CFETP. They have a few other things we're going to add in there. One of the key responses was program management and project management. So basically what you're doing in the CSS is managing multiple programs, right? To the tune of 30 or 40 of them in some cases, depending on how many key programs you have. So a lot of people overwhelmingly asked for some type of training to help them manage programs better. So we owe you that. So we're working that in there now as well. So again, you'll see a new CFETP. You know, unfortunately, nothing moves quick. Just like with the conversion, for us to get a new CFETP published, it's probably going to take 12 to 18 months. Nothing happens fast. As quick as we can get it out, we will get it out. And then the CFETP is going to drive additional training that will follow that. So once we get the CFETP updated, and then you've all looked at the CFETP, you got your 3-level task, 5, 7. So whatever we put in the 3-level column, that's going to change the 3-level course. So that's what drives what we teach in tech school. It's the CFETP 3-level column. We're looking to significantly change it. Right now it's a lot of task knowledge. You simply learn, you know, what those key phrases are. You learn the vocabulary, all of that other stuff, but you're not really doing much hands-on. So we want to change that. So we're going to try and make the 3-level course much more interactive, much more hands-on, much more involved, and less knowledge-based. And again, that was a requirement, or that was a request from everybody in the surveys that they wanted that. And then after 3-level, then we're looking at 5-level. So yeah, it was very obvious everybody hates the 5-level CDCs. Nobody likes them. You know, no value added, you know, the comments were pretty clear. So we're looking to potentially eliminate 5-level, not eliminate them, we're going to replace them. So we're looking to go, instead of with a book format CDC, to go with like a Blackboard delivery model. So we'll give you the same content, we're just going to deliver it in a different way that allows interactive or even possibly hands-on. So like in the CDCs, we may tell you about meal PDS, but there's no way to really walk you through the process. We could explain the steps, we could spell it out to you, but at the end of the day, you're just reading it and you're trying to walk through it in your mind. Under this new Blackboard model that we're looking at, we can show you a YouTube video and actually demonstrate it. Hey, we want you to take this action in meal PDS. Here's how you do it. And it might be a 90-second video clip that walks you through the process so that, no kidding, you know whether you're doing it right or not. You're not trying to decipher the code that's written in the text. So the new 5-level Blackboard delivery model we're looking at, again, it'll be a little bit of both because we have to test you on something, right? Eventually we're going to do SKT test again. What do we test you on? We're going to test you on that Blackboard delivery model. So that's going to be your study material. So we're going to take the content from the CDCs and we're going to still make it available through that venue so that you know what you're studying. Then after that, we're looking at 7-level training. For 7-level, the consensus was we probably need to do some type of a blended learning. So we eliminated our 7-level course a long time ago. I don't know how many of you that are in this room had the opportunity to go to in-residence 7-level course. See a bunch of hands for the more senior members here. So again, that was a great course. I went through it and I really got a lot out of it. So the feedback was that we need to bring something like that back. So we're looking at a blended learning for 7-level to where there's probably going to be a Blackboard delivery model for most of the content.
Love it.
And then we'll look at an in-residence portion as kind of a capstone at the end, maybe a week-long in-residence. Again, none of this is going to happen overnight, and it's all driven by the CFETP. So just ask for your patience, but I want you to know the kind of things we're working on to try and make your training better. I say that because I also want to thank you. A lot of this is driven by your feedback. So all of those that took the time to fill out the occupational analysis survey to let us know what you think and what's wrong with the training and what's good with the training. Again, your feedback's being used right now, and that's why we're making all these changes. So thanks again for doing that. And about every 2 to 3 years we do those. So when the next one comes out, again, know that it makes a difference, and make sure you fill it out. The last one is TBA, and this one's been popping up a lot lately. So in the A1 community, most of the other AFSCs use after. We're not going to convert to after. We're going to stay in TBA. And your AFSC conversion in TBA is going to be automatic. So I think a FLCMC, Air Force Life Cycle Management Center, is the overseer for TBA. We submitted a request to them to automatically convert everybody in TBA, and they accepted that. So that should happen soon if it hasn't happened already. So no manual process on the supervisor's part to go in and convert anybody. That piece will be done automatically. And again, the long-term plan is we're going to stay in TBA. Lots of factors, lots of reasons for that. One of the biggest being TBA is free, and after you have to pay for it. And we haven't palmed for after. So for me to automatically come up with a whole bunch of money to pay for after to flip us into that, can't do it in the short term, maybe a couple years down the road. Again, because we've already palmed for 19. So realistically, the soonest we would look to do that would be 20. So for the next couple of years at least, we're going to remain in TBA. So if you see those questions floating around, just let everybody know. We're going to stay where we are for now. Postal training comes up a lot. A lot of people interested in doing postal training, and then a lot of people that do official mail in the CONUS ask about postal training as well. And so really, postal operations in relation to official mail are two very different components. Official mail is a very, very small subset of postal operations. So typically, because of the limited class seats we have, we're not able to get those doing an official mail function through the postal operations course. We need to limit that to those going overseas that are going to do full spectrum postal operations. So the way we work that is the overseas MAGCOMs that have those requirements allocate the seats based on need. Because even within the overseas locations, we can't get everybody through the class. So we have to prioritize. So this year we only get 75 seats. And so if you look at all the people overseas doing postal, it's 500 and some change, 560. So again, what you have to look for is those key positions, and then you do the train the trainer model. We can't get everybody doing postal through the classes, so we train the key billets who then train those that are going to be under them at those locations. But that's how those seats are given out. So just wanted to explain that because we get requests often for class seats, and typically we're not able to support those requests, and I just wanted everybody to have a better understanding as to why that is. It's not that we don't want to get you through the class, it's that we're limited to 75 a year, so we got to make sure we get the right people through the class. All right, so that pretty much sums up everything with training. And again, training is really what's eating up most of my time right now. As we work the CFETP update, as we work all of these changes to training, I'm really spending a lot of time in this area. But that's because we need to do it. We need to do it as quick as we can, and we need to get better training out to all of you you know, as soon as possible. So this will stay a hot one for us for the short term anyway, probably for the long term. All right, next slide. All right, so manning's a hot one. I'll talk about manning here, and everybody directly correlates manning to assignments. We're going to talk about assignments on a later slide, so I won't get into it here. But right now, I just wanted to give everybody an idea of what our manning site picture looks like. Okay, and whenever I give you our manning numbers, I'm going to tell you our Air Force average and our worldwide average. And a lot of people don't understand the bogey or the difference between them. And so I'll give you a quick rundown. The major reason we have a huge difference between the two is because we have so many special manning points. And when I say special manning points, basically that's a job filled via an equal plus ad. So every equal plus ad position that we have negatively impacts our overall manning, because we have to fill those at a different rate than other positions. And we have a bunch of them. We have more than any other AFSC in the Air Force. So 37% of our positions are special manning points. No other career field comes close to that. So that negatively impacts our numbers, and you'll see that when I give them to you. So we'll start with three level A1Cs. So our Air Force average is 350%. Our worldwide average is 252%. So again, 100 points difference, all driven by special manning points. And that's just a tough one to overcome. For senior airmen, we're 120% Air Force average, 124% worldwide average. Staff is 85 Air Force, 61 worldwide.
The 3F conversion for my career field manager. Sorry, Mike. Oh, no, go ahead. Mike's talking about this one.
Hey, you got a hot mic.
Apologies, Chief, but could everyone make sure that you mute your phone?
Yeah.
So good. I'm sorry to interrupt. This is Chief Zachary's. Could you please give the number again for the staff sergeant?
85% Air Force average, 61% worldwide.
Wow. Yes, sir.
Tech Sergeant, we're 84% Air Force, 68% worldwide. Master Sergeant, we're 88% Air Force, 70% worldwide. Senior Master Sergeant, we're 112% Air Force, 91% worldwide. Chief Master Sergeant, we're 136% Air Force, 133% worldwide. So again, if you look at those numbers and you see the big difference between the two percentages, that's driven by our special manning points. So later on when we talk about assignments and we talk about what we can do and what we can't do, you'll understand better, you know, kind of what's driving that. So we'll get into that a little bit deeper, but I wanted everybody to see, I didn't want to just give you Air Force averages because that doesn't paint a clear picture. To really understand the site picture of our manning, you need to see both sides of it, and that's what you're looking at right there. One of the other drivers that just impacted our manning is the revitalization of our CSSs, bringing CSSs back. So last month we grew, I want to say just over 150 positions across the Air Force. So when you have the same number of people, but your positions grow by 150, your averages automatically go down. So staff, tech, and master almost all went down by about 7% in 1 month. So again, you know, that's one of those key things. We're growing the CSSs as a part of the CSAF's #1 initiative, which is revitalize squadrons. So it's important that we do that. But again, when we get to assignments later, and I give you the news that I give you, you understand some of these impacting things and what's going into it. And this is important. You know, the Chief of Staff said this is the #1 initiative. This is important, so we need to support it at the expense of maybe some other opportunities. So that's kind of a quick overview of our manning. Yeah, let's go to the next slide. And we're at assignments. So So probably the question I get the most is DSDs. And what I haven't done a good job of in the past is updating the field on our DSD status. It's it floats around out there that we don't participate and all this other stuff, but I don't really officially put anything out there. So what I'm gonna start doing with every DSD cycle is, every 6 months we fill out a DSD release form, the career field manager does. So I fill out a form, I send it over to A1, and I say this is what our career field can afford to give up during this next cycle, and it's based on projected manning. And when I say projected manning, it's both of those numbers that I gave you. So again, DSD, the goal of DSD is to bring your career field down to 95%. Okay, so every career field that's overmanned, their recommendation to the career field is that you give up however many positions you can give up or however many people you can give up until your career field hits 95%. And then for career fields that are below 95% like we are, you just don't give up because you can't afford to, right? So I get a lot of questions on this, but it's really a pretty straightforward process. We're simply not healthy enough from a manning standpoint that we can release to DSD. And realistically, with the growth of the CSSs and everything else that's going on, I don't see that changing in the next year. So in the next 2 DSD cycles, it's very unlikely that we will release anybody to participate in those programs. I know that's not what you want to hear.
This is Chief Muse from USAPA. Are we still releasing people for like SL, ECPO, and A?
For what?
For like the senior leader enlisted commissioning programs.
Yeah, all of those are handled completely separately.
Okay, so we're just talking DSD.
Yeah, we're just talking DSD.
Okay, got it, thanks.
Yeah, so again, site picture for DSD is realistically the next 12 months. It's not likely that we will be able to release anybody. We will send that out as those cycles come through. So whenever I do the DSD release or non-release, whatever it is, I'll make sure and advertise that out to the field. That way nobody's surprised. Everybody's on the same page. And that way we can avoid the rumors floating around. Like I saw one on Facebook yesterday that we only release female TIs, which is not the case. We actually denied the last 2 of those requests that came in. So again, it's a fluid process. It's not set in stone. It's not a policy that says we don't release. It's a numbers game. So when the request comes in, we look at the numbers, and if we can support it, we support it. And if we can't, we can't. But our numbers outlook right now doesn't support it. So hopefully that kind of clears the mud a little bit and makes a little bit of sense. Let me give you an example. I did an all call. I don't remember where my last all call was. The Joint World, I think. And so I pulled numbers from the DSD. So I just gave you the numbers for our career field, right? Everybody's like 84% and below. So right now, if you look at MTI, they're 102%. So again, why would you pull from a career field that's 84% and give to a career field that's already 102%? So I get that there's the desire to do some of these duties, but the Air Force needs 3As right now. That's, again, you're looking to step out and do something different, but there's a need for what you do right now. There's a great need for it. So again, kind of trying to clear the picture on DSD and what we're really doing there. And what we're really doing is asking you to remain 3As because we just can't afford to let you go right now. But that's kind of a great segue to the next bullet, right? So you want to do something different. There's a lot of opportunities within our career field to step outside of mainstream. I mean, so you could go to ROTC and they have some very great and unique opportunities that are special duties, but you're still a 3A. Same thing for OSI. You can go to an OSI detachment and you get to do things that you're not going to do anywhere else in our career field, but you're still in our career field. ROTC, the detachments, working with the schools, again, great opportunities. You also have opportunities up here in the Pentagon on the joint staff or the air staff. Again, so if you want to do something different, you don't want to do a CSS, or you don't want to do a wing, you have plenty of opportunity. Just stay tuned to those Equal Plus ads. They're out there all the time, and volunteer for one of them. Because again, we struggle to fill those as well within our career field. So if you need something different or you want something different, I ask that you branch out in that way instead. Because again, the DSD opportunity is not there. So that's really your growth opportunity within our career field. The last bullet on this slide is the postal assignments. So the only postal assignments that you'll see on AMS are those key positions we talked about, to where they have to be skilled or filled with a certain skill. You need to have that skill already, because you're going to be a lead of a large location or something along those lines. There are others that are going to overseas locations that are going to do postal, and when you initially get your assignment, you're not even tracking that you're going to do postal, because it's not one that's coded that requires the school or anything along those lines. So I throw that out there because if you're interested in doing postal, but you don't meet the requirements of those special ones that are listed in Equal Plus, then when you get an overseas assignment, reach out to your base functional, reach out to your MAGCOM functional for the overseas MAGCOM you're going to, and see if they can work you into one of those other postal positions. So the opportunity's there. If you're interested in doing that, that's your best avenue to get into one of those positions. And then through that process, you could grow that skill. So like if you get picked up for one of those, but we can't send you to the schoolhouse, and you do a postal job for 6 months, at the 6-month point, we give you SEI 984, which is your basic postal SEI, which would then qualify you for other jobs later down the road. So again, if you're looking to get your foot in that door and you don't meet the requirements, there's ways to get those requirements under your belt to open up later opportunities. You just got to be a little bit proactive on your part if that's something you want to do. All right, so that's pretty much what I have on assignments. Let's go next slide. All right, so we just did our first enlisted development team for our career field. And it was interesting. Again, anytime you do something for the first time, you're just not sure exactly how it's going to turn out. Turned out pretty good. So we were pleased with the outcome. We were pleased with how it went. We figured out we did do some things wrong. You're never going to get it right the first time. We'll get it better next time. But this was a first step in deliberately developing our career field. That's really the goal of EDT, is to deliberately develop your career field. So perfect example, again, I've been in 29 years, so yesterday I hit the retirement button. It's time, right? So in the near future, we're gonna work the process to identify my replacement. Should that be an accidental process just based on who's PCS eligible at the time? Or should we deliberately go through a process to develop somebody to fill that position? I think it should be the latter. I think we should put somebody through certain steps and processes in their career so that when it's time for them to fill this position, they're ready. And the reason we kind of realize that this is the case is because if you look at two of the big sides of our career field, you have traditional 3A and then you have postal. And then we looked at the bulk of our career field, we realized that we haven't really developed both sides of that. You're either one or the other. So when we're looking at who's potentially going to replace me, they're either going to be traditional 3A or they're going to be postal, but there's nobody out there that really has a strong background doing both. So again, hence enlisted development. So we're going to start to grow this. So we're going to create a path, and the path is going to start when you're in tech school, and it's going to end when you retire. And we're going to look at what they call the continuum of learning, which is going to cover your entire life cycle. And it's not just training, it's training, education, and experience. It's all the things you need over a career to get you ready for higher level positions. So again, purpose and intent of EDT is to grow the future of our career field. So back to this EDT, so who did we vector? Who did we look at? There's not a cut and dry answer to this. Every career field takes a different approach. Smaller career fields, they look at everybody 100%. And then we had several people reach out to us that they wanted us to do the same thing. I got people in the room here shaking their heads. They're upset with me because I didn't give them a vector. But again, so it kind of aligns with what Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force is talking about, doing away with A1C EPRs. It really serves no official purpose, right? It's not used for anything, so we put all that work into it, and you're not going to get anything out of it in the end. So we kind of took that same approach. Why vector everybody? So really, when we're doing vectors, we do vectors every year. There's going to be an EDT next year. We're going to redo it again. So why vector somebody this year that can't PCS for the next 12 months? There's no return on your investment. So what we did was we scoped it down, and we vectored only those who were PCS eligible through March of 19. Now, you have to vector a pool of 1 to 4. So we looked at the number of positions we were vectoring to, and then we looked at our pool, and we realized that we didn't have enough people. So we had to expand it. So we expanded it to people who can move between March of 19 with a 12-month time on station waiver. And that gave us the number of people that we needed to pull this EDT off. So that's what we looked at. So if you have a code that doesn't allow you to move between now and March of 19, or you're within your HYT by March of 19, again, if you have some type of a limiting factor that would prevent you from PCSing during this vectoring process, we didn't look at you. And again, for those reasons, because we can't move you to these positions that we need to move you to anyway, so there's no return on the investment. So we didn't do it. The number of packages we did look at, 224 Master Sergeant, 62 Senior Master Sergeant. So for us to look at those records took us a full week. If we had looked at everybody, I think we have 560 some odd Master Sergeants, and we have 94 Senior Master Sergeants. We would have had to extend that another full week to vector everybody. And again, there's not going to be any return on that investment in the end. So that's why we made that. Not trying to slight anybody, not trying to, give anybody the cold shoulder. We just wanted to look at those that we could move during this window that we need to move people. So the next EDT is going to be again next year, and it'll be an every year process after that. So if you didn't get looked at this year, but your window opens up, you'll get looked at next year, and you'll get a vector form, and it'll align you on what we think is the next right step for you. So after we did the vectors, everybody who was vectored, we sent a vector form to them. A lot of questions came from that, assignment impacts. You vectored me to this, when am I moving type thing. So a vector doesn't drive an assignment. So by virtue of you getting vectored, you're not automatically going to get hit with something. What it does do is it says what you're available to fill when you get matched or when it's time for you to move. So our key positions, KDPs and KLPs, development and leadership positions. Hey, you got a hot mic. So when we fill those key positions, they'll be advertised via Equal Plus ad. And when you read the ad, it'll say that this is a vectored position. And the reason it's going to say that is because if you didn't get that vector, you can't apply for it. The only people that can apply for those jobs are those people that received that vector during the EDT. So what we did was we built pools. This is not a by name request process. It simply says who's qualified and eligible to fill a job. So one example of a key leadership position is the AFSC MFM position. So we want to put somebody in that position who has shown through their career that they're ready for that as the next step. Shouldn't be an accident. So we have a pool of people that we said, based on this EDT and a record review, they're qualified. They met all the key gates throughout their career, and they're ready to go do that. We didn't say this particular person has to go do it next. We have to give a pool of at least 4. And then the assignment process will work within those 4. but only that pool of people can go fill that position. So hopefully that clarifies it a little bit. You know, a lot of people think it's a by name request process. I vectored you to this, you're going to go do that. It doesn't drive an assignment. It simply says what you're eligible to go fill and how those are going to get matched up. Yeah. So again, a lot of questions on that. And this was our first year. So we expect those questions are going to continue. But as this gets more mature within our career field, as we do it for a few more years, this will get to be the norm. And it'll get better. We'll make it better every year. We just need to keep working on it. All right. So that's all I have on EDT. So next slide is collaboration. Yeah, so look, I got a couple people in here smiling. So none of this stuff is my idea. This all call today wasn't my idea. The collaboration's not my idea. I mean, I'm open to inputs from the field. If you have an idea that you think will make our career field better, then I ask that you just work it up. You know, if you're at a base X, you know, contact your base functional manager who can send it to your MAGCOM functional manager who can get it up to us. But I mean, a lot of these things we're doing were recommendations from the field. So one of the recommendations from the field is if you look on the portal site, there's always requests out there. Hey, can you send me a sample of this or a template of that? So to streamline that process, you know, someone requested we create a SharePoint site to where we could put all that stuff in one location, and instead of asking for it, you just go get it. I mean, so that's easy, right? So ask, it makes sense. So we're gonna do it. So there's the SharePoint site. We're gonna put some folders out there, and then again, y'all start populating it. So we opened it up to the career field, right? So if you have a template that could benefit somebody, go put it out there. And then, you know, if you need a template, hopefully as this grows, everything you need is gonna be right there. So again, it's a great idea, not my idea. I wish it was, but again, it's not. Came from the field, and I'm happy to support it because it makes sense, you know. It helps the career field, it makes the career field better, so I'm all for it. And I pitch that because if you have a great idea that'll help the career field, by all means, work it up to us. I'd be happy to see it, happy to entertain it. The next one is my vector. So hopefully most of you have gotten at least a couple of my vector emails from me. So one of the collaboration issues that was raised is typically I send an email out and I send it to the MAGCOM functional managers, and they send it to the base functional managers, and it works its way down. But there's a lot of one-offs that are just getting missed. Whether you're in a combatant command or maybe you're working in an embassy somewhere, we have a bunch that don't directly align under a specific MAGCOM, and they're just getting missed. So we were looking for a way that I could simply directly email the entire career field so that we don't miss anybody, and my vector lets us do that. So my vector will email everybody listed with our career field as our AFSC in MilPDS. And it pulls the address that you have loaded officially in the system. So one, if you change email addresses, please update it in the system or you're not going to get our emails. And then two, you know, a plug for my vector. A lot of these things we're doing, so like EDT, our next EDT will be accomplished in my vector. So this time it was a manual process. We emailed forms out. You had to fill it out, get your supervisor to sign it and your commander to sign it. You had to email it back. Then the board looked at it. We added information to the form. Then we emailed it back out to you again. I mean, it was a very manual, very cumbersome process. They just added that to my vector. It's all built in there now. So now your form will be in your my vector account. You'll go fill it out. Whoever we designate as our EDT panel members will have access to it. They'll go read it, review it. We'll determine vectors based on inputs in the form plus your records. The entire process is going to be automated. Then once we put our vectors on the form, you will see it in my vector. So again, if you haven't gone out to create a my vector account yet, just ask that you do that because we're going to get a lot more active in that arena here in the near future. But yeah, that and look for those emails. All right, that's all I have on collaboration. Let's go next slide. All right, so the reason we did top 5 questions is because, again, we have people from all over the globe that's dialed into this, and there's no way for us to facilitate, one, the number of questions that we would probably get in the time that we have. So what we wanted to do is just take everybody's questions in advance and narrow it down to the top 5 and address those top 5. So that's what we're going to try and do right here. That'll probably lead to more questions. So I've already been approached with not creating, but doing like a monthly online interactive session. And again, I'm old school. I don't know exactly what that means, but somebody's going to set that up like this. And what it is we're going to designate a time to where I get online, kind of like the webcast that we just did, to where you can ask questions live and I answer you live. So we're going to factor that in. So any questions that you have that come out of this all call, within the next month, we'll do our first one of those sessions. You'll be able to ask your questions in, and we'll try and do it interactive. And then from a timing standpoint, we'll just figure out which right based on the number of questions coming in. Maybe once a month is too often, and we do it once a quarter. Maybe once a month is not often enough, and we figure something else out. And we'll let you drive that. I mean, based on your questions and interest will determine how often, how frequently we do that. Okay, so the first question, are we SKT exempt? And so the answer is yes. And the reason being, most people are tying the exemption to the conversion. Has nothing to do with the conversion. The reason we're SKT exempt is because we're redoing our training. And so right now, the information that you have available to you, in my mind, is not good study material. So I need to redo all of the training material and give you good study material before I test you on it. I don't want to test you on bad stuff that doesn't apply to our career field. So we submitted a waiver request that was approved, and then we haven't put it out yet, so you're the first to know. I've already done a waiver request for 2019. That was just approved the end of last week. So testing year 2018 and testing year 2019, our career field is SKT exempt. So hopefully that answers everybody's question on that one. Question 2, are we still eligible to compete for Information Dominance Awards? If not, what award do we fall under? So this is our last year. So 2017, we're competing for Information Dominance Awards. If you're competing, hopefully your package is already turned in because the suspense date for most locations has already passed. So hopefully most people had the opportunity. Starting next year, we're going to compete in the A1 Awards program. We'll get that award guidance out to everybody because it is very different than the ID Awards. So we'll get it out soon so that you could look at what you'll be competing in. Really within the A1 arena, it's more functionally based. It's not AFSC driven like ID Awards. There is no specific award for a career field. It's based on functions. So we'll get that out so you could look at it and you'll see which function you fall in based on where you're at, whether you're at a base level or at a headquarters, because they're kind of separate. So that'll start next year. Third question, for those that were previously 3DOX1s and are authorized to wear the 3DOX1 badge, will the secondary AFSC be updated? If so, will the update need to be initiated by the members? Okay, so no secondary AFSCs, okay, because it's a conversion. So a lot of people tie the badge to an AFSC, slightly different for us. What you're looking at for a secondary AFSC, when we did the split, we would have sent you back to tech school. You would have done 5-level upgrade training over again. That's the process to award you a secondary AFSC. We did not do that. We converted within an AFSC. So it'll show up in your duty history to show that you were this, now you're this. And if it's in your duty history in those inclusive dates, which is 1 November 2009 to 1 May 2014, then you're good. You don't need it as a secondary AFSC to wear that badge. And it won't be awarded as a secondary AFSC. So I guess that's kind of a follow-on question, that there won't be secondary AFSCs awarded because of this. All right, next question. What does the career progression look like to Chief? Will 3FO or 3F500s be positioned in FSSs? Okay, so kind of two questions there. The answer to the first part is we don't know, right? So that's what we just talked about. We're in the process of developing our career roadmap right now. So we have a team of SMEs that are working that. The team lead is Chief Lee in Air University. He's working in conjunction with all the MFMs, and we're developing that roadmap that we talked about in the EDT process, which is going to spell out your continuum of learning, knowledge, education, experience, from when you go to tech school through when you retire. So we're in the process of mapping that out. When the new CFETP comes out, it's going to be captured in there. So you know how right now we have a career pyramid, which doesn't really paint a really good picture? We're going to clarify that. We're going to add, the pyramid will be updated, plus we're going to add additional information that will spell it out. And we'll let you know those things you need to do to prepare you for those key positions later in your career. But right now, it's not available yet. The only thing we have is the pyramid that's in the CFETP. But that's coming soon. So stay tuned, and you'll see that before too much longer. The second part to the question, will 3F5 chiefs fill FSS superintendent roles? So we're gonna try it. We're going to take a couple of locations and we're going to do it on a test basis. And the reason we want to do that is everybody remembers when we were 3As before. Everybody that was a 3A0, and then we all of a sudden became 3Ds, and then some of them, based on where you were in your career, all of a sudden you're the superintendent of a comm squadron. And you don't have the skill set to be successful in that job because we didn't grow up in that community. So we set our career field up for failure by doing that. You know, the false assumption that because we're in this community now, we can simply do it wasn't a good assumption. If we just do that on this side, we're making that same false assumption. We didn't learn from our past mistakes. So let's try it out first. You know, we think our communities are closely related, so let's try a few out. If we put a couple in those positions and they're successful, let's expand it. If we put them in there and they're not successful, let's figure out what we need to grow them first before we just dump them in there. So I would say the answer to the second part of the question that's in the works, we're looking to start with 2 locations, and then based on how that goes, we may expand it, we may not. We may need to get on some training tracks before we go that route, but we're not going to rush to failure this time. We're gonna work through it smartly and try and take a good approach to it. Last question, what role do 3F5s play in records management with the new guidance from the SECAF and the CSAF? So when we did the CFETP review, the consensus was we remove it. It's not a function of our career field anymore, right? So records management is a function of the 3D0X1 career field. So we have no official role in that arena any longer. Now, I don't know how many people saw the new AFI that came out, 33.322. Paragraph 4.5 said commanders need to leverage their CSSs to assist with that role. So we pushed back on that. And the reason being, it's not a function of our career field. So you shouldn't place that requirement on us when we're outside of that line of work now. So you're going to see an interim change, and that's going to get removed from the AFI. So you're going to see 33.322 get updated. And paragraph 4.5, where it says your CSSs should help with this, is going to be taken out. Now, don't take that to mean you're never going to do records management. That commander still could use you as a resource and say, I need you to help with this program. We're just trying to tell you it's not a function of your career field. But if you're in an office or a capacity that requires you to do that role, just like any other role, we're going to do it. So don't take this and go to your commander and say, I'm not doing records management because they just took it out of the AFI. You'll never win that. And we're not trying to get you to do that. Just trying to tell you from a career field standpoint, we don't have an official role in records management any longer. So if you need guidance, assistance, anything like that, you should reach out to your knowledge management cell in your base comm squadron. That's where your records management experts reside. Sound good? All right, last question. That might be last slide. Next slide. Yeah, so again, so this was different for me, right? Not really in my comfort wheelhouse, but you know, it was asked for, so I'm happy to do it. If the feedback comes from you that you want to do this more often, we'll keep doing it, even though it's still not in my comfort wheelhouse. Because again, I want to communicate with you in a way that you want to be communicated with. So the way I've been doing it in the past was that message to the field. And I think I sent 10 messages out. And every time I would go out and do an all call, I would ask a question from my message from the field. One, just because I want to gauge how many people actually read it. And almost everywhere I went, maybe they read parts of it, the parts that were kind of interesting, but most of it wasn't read. So I get it. That's not how you want me to communicate with you. So maybe this is the way. Maybe I don't do messages to the field any longer. We do all calls with the field. I'll let you tell me that. So let me know how you want to hear from me. You know, work that through your base functional to your MAGCOM functional and have them communicate with me on how you want to hear from me. And if you don't want to hear from me at all, let me know that too. Again, I'm a team player. I'm on board. So, you know, as we move this career field forward and we work through these changes, I'm flexible. I'm willing to do what we need to do to make it better for everybody. So again, with that said, I appreciate everybody taking the time, especially those in those time zones that you're either really early or really late. Thanks for listening in. We'll get this video out to everybody so that you can watch it. If you weren't able to be here, you can share it with your team or your teammates that couldn't make it and they can see it. And then again, we'll just keep moving this forward and we'll keep doing what we need to do to push our career field in a good direction. So I appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time.